is where we enjoy the ride. So come on, let's go.
We're on a journey, looking back on the things that we've taken for granted, but feels like we're learning to be better without what's been holding us back now. Let's move closer to a new history, find out what we can be together. Take my hand and we will conquer the world. This is our final chance.
So this is our, it's On The Go is essentially the brand name, who sells it. Deionizer kit. It's a dual bed standard. Standard just being the size of the container. If it was a double standard, it would be, this thing would be twice the size. Same height, but twice the size. Or actually in this case, I think it's twice as tall. But anyway, so this is a dual bed standard. So it's not mixed. Some of them are mixed bed, where it has both of those resin beds in it, whereas this one has one of them in one type of resin in one, and one type of resin in the other. So anyway, it comes in, goes through this one first, and then goes through that one second, and then
what comes in?
Water, bulk
Okay.
water, wherever it comes from, just, you know, whatever your tap is. And you have to recharge this. This is supposed to be about a 500 to about 500 gallons can run through this and produce deionized water. But it depends on how hard your water is to start with. So that's at, they said, I think it's at 200 to 250 parts per million of minerals of whatever kind on the raw water coming in. So here we ran through it a lot faster between here and Spearfish, because the water in both locations is very hard. So when I bought this, it came with a meter that you dip in the water, and it tells you how many parts per million solids you still have in the water. So it's supposed to be, I think it's supposed to, if it's 0, that's the best, but apparently up to about 250 it's okay. In this case we were way above 5 or 6, or actually I think we were 10 times that. It said when the meter blinks, it says add 10 to the number, or at you know, it's 10 times that number. So if it was 450, it's 4,500. So we were way off.
Wow.
Way out. So, and you could tell because we had water spots all over our bikes and all over the Jeep when we washed them. And this kind of got the last gasp, because there was a few little spots on the motorhome when I washed it when we first got here, and then after that it just went. I don't know. So anyway, it's really easy to change the to recharge these. You just shut off the water, is what they say. Well, obviously I already did that because it's been disconnected. I always put caps on this and my softener and even my filter when I'm transporting, just because I don't want contaminants getting in, and it seems to work pretty well. So anyway, you disconnect the water source, and you have to disconnect these two. They give you a pretty cool system to connect them instead of having a screw hose, which would be, as you know, you can imagine, would be really awkward. They give you these 2 cam locks on each end. They come with it, and you know, you just undo the cam locks and that thing just comes off. It's pretty neat. Now you have to buy this part separately.
The cart?
It's an extra 80 bucks, I think, or I don't remember how much. It was a bit, but sure makes it easier to cart them around.
It's a godsend, right?
You could make your own, but I didn't have the tools at the time or want to do it. So this should be stage 1. Obviously the inlet is here, so they're labeled stage 1, stage 2.
Okay.
But I'll know anyway once I open it up. And you know, you just discard the old resin, and I believe it's a silica type resin, but anyway, but it's obviously easier to do it if you don't have any water in it. The same thing with the softener. You think you can just pour it out of one side, but it actually, because of the way the water forces through the resins in them, you have to drain. Essentially, you have to drain both sides because there's a tube in the middle. So this is not, according to what I read, this is not a harmful substance. You know, it's not toxic or anything like that. So. Let's see if we can get rid of that water. Oh, no. Okay, that's good.
And are they pre-measured? So you just dump the bag in?
Yep, they come. You order them. When you order them, you specify. You know, you specify what you have. So in this case, a dual bed standard. And so, for instance, if I had a mixed bed standard, it would be all in one package.
Okay.
If I had the dual bed double, it would be twice as much.
So when you have the mixed kind, that's one of those units all mixed together. Why did you choose the dual bed?
Well, from what I read, it was this does more water. You know, it handles, so that most of them are rated on water capacity, like how much water can they process before needing to be recharged. And you have to weigh that off against size, because the double version of this clearly does more water, does twice as much.
Right.
It's also twice as big, twice as heavy.
Right, and that's
So,
probably not for...
If you were in a fixed location, it wouldn't be bad.
Okay.
They have a park model too, which is, you would imagine, ginormous. So it's a lot like your Culligans or whatever.
Uh-huh.
Big, huge water. Okay, so here's the problem with living in an RV, and even if you're at home, is you get a kit with this stuff, and over time, you forget where everything is. So we're gonna have to take a pause for station identification because I have to find the funnel that allows me to pour that in there.
So you just put that on so the resin doesn't go inside of that?
Inside the tube, yeah. And
Okay.
then they give you this handy dandy funnel, which is really kind of cool.
It probably has an ingredients list in that paperwork.
Well, I'm sure, so this stuff probably is required. I don't know, maybe it's not required. A lot of this stuff, sometimes it has to have a materials safety data sheet.
Okay.
MSDS. Like for all of your, anything that's chemical based, you get like from Home Depot and stuff.
Yeah.
It may not be included, but they have to make it available.
Okay. So maybe through their website.
Yeah, they usually have a website or a link, or same thing here probably. Okay. Now, my friends, so blue cap can come back off. Maybe. Still very well lubricated, so
Okay.
I'm gonna worry about it on this go around, but. And the O-ring lubricant really is to allow allow it to slip as it goes and not catch and twist.
Uh-huh.
This is a pretty heavy duty O-ring. And what it says in the instructions is to remove all the silica dust. Now,
Here it comes.
There we go.
Okay, so it has a color to it. Kind of a ginger ale look.
So
And now
that's
it's
what
clear.
So that's what they're talking about. They said 2 to 3 minutes. Yeah. So you can see that sort of caramel color. And now it's pretty clear looking. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna say that's okay. So anyway, that one is done.
What are the tanks made out of?
Fiberglass.
Fiberglass.
So again, to describe how it works, the water comes in to the inlet here. It just free flows down through the resin. It's forced through these little slits up this tube, and then through the other slits, and then out the side. So
Okay.
it keeps, that's to keep the resin in place. So obviously the resin's big enough, it won't go through those little slits.
So the water inlet, I want to look inside here. So it comes
water
in on
inlet
this
comes in here, and
side.
you can actually see into this opening.
Okay.
And then it goes, it's forced into these slits at the top, goes up the tube, and then comes out that
And
side.
out.
And there's
Interesting.
the inlet.
When you were doing your research, why did you choose the on-the-go system?
Part of it was pricing, part of it was familiarity with the on-the-go water softener.
That's what we have for the water softener as well?
Same company
Okay.
sells that, so that's pretty much it.
And the price is pretty
And a lot of them
reasonable?
are pretty similar. Yeah, I forgot what this cost. To be honest with you, I think it's listed at about $400 right now.
That seems like a lot of money, but when you put it to somebody coming and washing your RV for you,
Well, what did they say they were charging in Spearfish before we left?
$450 per wash.
So
for one wash, it's less than one wash.
and I've washed the RV with this system, I think about 5 or 6 times.
5 or 6
Yeah,
times?
depending on so that's the problem is that depending on the severity of the water you're dealing with to begin with.
Right.
And we've been in some places with really hard water.
Mm-hmm.
Places that have wells like Spearfish or KOA Spearfish.
Most places do, unless you're in a place like we are right now, which is inside of a city.
City, and they have really hard water.
So you put the cap on to keep the silica from, or resin from going into the tube, right?
Yep.
Now the cone that was at the base of that tube, does that have to be changed out as well at some point?
It's just a
It's
plastic.
not a
It's not
filter
even-
or
well,
anything
it's
like
kind
that?
of a filter, but it's not really. It's just plastic. And obviously the slits are designed to be the size to prevent the silica from going through the tube.
Okay.
It's like little.
It's almost like little glass beads.
It is. It's like glass beads. It's exactly what it's like.
And the funnel came in the kit for recharging it. So now you're just flushing the second.
So it was a little bit cloudy looking at first. Didn't really, not even as much as the other one, but
The other one had a different color.
yeah,
That
it was
one's
a little
more,
easy to see. This just had a little bit of a milky, cloudy look to it
Right.
when it first came out. And it's clear now, so.
so it doesn't take much.
It says 2 to 3 minutes, but really, it looks clear to me, so it's clear
Okay.
enough for my taste. Now, what I'd like to do is is get a, I think I have a plastic cup over here. Get a plastic cup, fill it up with water, and test it.
And did you get that tester from On the Go as well?
It came with my with the kit that I bought.
Okay.
So. So it's saying our total dissolved solids. Now it says when it's blinking, it says add 10, so it says 120. It says 12, but if you multiply it by 10, not add 10, but multiply by 10, you'll get 120.
And what is it supposed to be?
200 or less.
So it's 120 and it's below.
Yep. And that's with what we know is really our system. What we're going to do today is back flush this thing first, because they say to do that every once in a while.
What is it, every 3 months?
It says every 3 months. And so this is our water system. And I put quotes on it because it's just what we use. The general setup is the water comes out of the faucet. In this case, it goes, because we're on city water, I didn't really think we had to filter it. Sometimes I do it the other way around. Sometimes I'll put the water coming out of the faucet into the filter first, then into the water softener. But since we're in, you know, on city water, it should be fairly clean water. Anyway, most of the time I hook the faucet water, or the whatever water it is, the raw water, up to the filter, which is a whole house filter. Then I have the pressure regulator on here, because sometimes we've been in parks where it's been 80 pounds of pressure. That'll blow everything out of your RV. So it goes through here and then into the RV. So these can be swapped around. Normally I hook this up first, water comes out of there, goes through here, and then through the pressure regulator. So this being a water softener, this being the whole house filter. So that's our system. We also have a filter inside the wet bay that comes in the RV. So our water is double filtered, and if you talk about the refrigerator water, it's triple filtered, because there's a filter inside that too. And yet we just...
So the instructions say to back flush it. So back flushing, you attach it to the out, and flush it out for 2 to 3 minutes. Is that what it said?
So, and essentially you're making sure there's the resin is not up in the pipe or anything, and pushing any residue or anything that's caught in the inlet side back out the other side.
Okay.
Now it says to go full charge, full bore. And then it says cut it down to 75%, so whatever that is.
So do you have to recharge the resin as well?
You do, but it says that the resin, as long as you follow the back flush and the recharge, which is to add salt, and you use iron out occasionally if you're in particularly high iron content areas. They said the resin in these should last 10 years.
Oh, really?
That's what they said.
That's a long time.
That's a long time.
So after back flushing, you dump out the remaining amount of water that's in there before you can charge it.
Well, because you have to have somewhere for the salt to go, space-wise, you know. Mm-hmm. And if you don't dump the water out, then there's nowhere for it to go in. And then what they recommend is tapping it so that you push the resin down to the bottom. Because when you're doing the dump, when you're dumping out the water, it kind of falls to the top. So, yep. You can see right down in here. You can see the resin in here.
Oh yeah.
So.
Is the resin similar to the resin from the second canister of the Deionizer?
You know, it's basically a carrier for it helps attract what you're trying to get rid of. In this case, hard water. It
Okay.
helps attract, and the salt permeates it, and then it just helps attract the hard water minerals into the thing. It's a different process than the Deionizer. It's similar, but if you saw, that's the opening you have to get the salt in through.
Oh, okay.
And what does salt do when it contacts moisture?
It gets
clumpy.
Okay, so to recharge it is...
For the standard, which is what we have, it's one, they say box. So I guess that's a box. Remember they used to actually be boxes?
Yeah.
Well, now they're round. Anyway, so it's one box, which is, what, 26 ounces of salt. 1 pound, 10 ounces. So for a double standard, you use 2.
So hard water is not only bad for your pipes, but also it's hard on your skin and your hair.
So anyway, and it's just a matter of pouring salt in. Pouring salt on an open wound. Just put a little silicone grease on the mating surface where the O-ring touches, and then you don't have to actually hit the whole thing because it will spread itself around.
And that's a silicone lubricant?
Yep. And this is actually provided by On The Go. It's for the Deionizer, but it's the same thing. Just dielectric silicone grease. That's all it is. So now, put the cap back on.
Where do you put the iron out?
Oh, thank you for that. Put the iron out down there.
And what is iron out?
Iron out. Rust and stain remover. You can use it in plumbing in your house or in the washing machine or whatever.
And it's safe to drink.
Put it in the toilet bowl, down the toilet tank. You put it in white laundry, water softeners. So.
And how much do you put into there?
So, what they said, and that you have to look at their instructions because you can't go off of this, because this only tells you, like, it says add entire sample, which is this thing, which is 6 ounces, to 40 pounds of salt. Well, we only put a pound of salt in there.
Okay.
So this is, they say, is put in, I think it's 2 to 3 tablespoons. Well, or teaspoons, the little ones.
Okay.
So what I did
Teaspoons.
is I just filled this up.
Oh, it's a powder.
Yeah, it's powder. Apparently, people that have wells that are super iron rich use this a lot. Anyway, thank you for reminding me about that stuff because I was going to forget.
And what does it say to...
I'll tell you because I have to read it every time. I don't know. I just can't remember anything anymore. So, there you go. Backflush. No, we want regular instructions. So you can use, it says, use 1 to 2 teaspoons of iron out for the standard model, and then more for bigger ones. Replace the cap. So, here's what it says. For the standard model, stream of water should just clear the side of the tank. The stream should be the size of a pencil. Rinse for 10 to 12 minutes in the standard model. And then, after that, increase it to a full flow for 3 to 4 minutes.
Yeah, we're not wasting 14 minutes worth of water.
Well, you have to run it for a little while because otherwise you just get salt in your system.
Right.
But this is what I'm saying is when you first do it, they said the size of a pencil. So if you think about it,
Okay.
what you're going to get is
Just barely clearing the sides, right? Oh, okay. That's not that bad. Right there. That's good.
So now,
So now,
call it 14 minutes. And that's how we combat hard water inside and outside of the RV. And until the next time, enjoy the ride.